This here is the area where we seed it into straw. So this is now going to, or has gone to seed already, and we let it be for as long as possible, and eventually we will bring them in for grazing, but it will be at a very later point. She was just grazing there, and well, see, we'll continue. There's still something that wants to come up, and they immediately eat it, because whatever is green is now food. And that is the way how you can eliminate the plants. Well, it goes like that. Of course, this is a road, so here it does not really matter. But if this were supposed to be a paddock, then that would be really bad. The little ones are not so little anymore. They are growing bigger and bigger every day.
Welcome back to Granja Camito in Andalusia, Spain. The bovines are in the sacrifice paddock, as today we don't have a paddock available for grazing. We try to be strict and give the plants the time to regrow and the soil biology to develop.
I can see something green in here. That must be the potato experiment that we started. Just to grow something here in that old straw. By the way, this here, right next to the sacrifice paddock / the future garden for our house, is full of dandelions. So I would think that this is a positive thing, because they are also helping to make soil.
The calves are getting bigger and bigger, and soon it will be time to wean them. From experience we know that the cows will not perform the weaning themselves. We are prepared now and have some plastic devices that we clip to the calf's nose, it won't hurt, that is then supposed to make the cow reject the calf's attempt to drink milk. We've learned the hard way that a calf can suck the mother dead.
I find this quite interesting. This paddock here has been pretty poor in this area that I'm showing you, and what I see is a lot of dandelions that have not been here before. So this is quite impressive, and as far as I understand, dandelions help to improve the soil, and so that is what is going on. Well, that's a very positive sign. It is also the one that is next up for grazing. So apparently there is some connection between the bovine activity and the presence of these dandelions, because they have not been here before, and working with the bovines is what we have been doing the whole time. So may not be that one is the reason for the other, but pure coincidence? Probably not. Well, we had some doubts, but this is how it turns out. And the idea here is to make them do some maintenance instead of us cutting things. They should eat it. This is the patch of vetiver. The vetiver hasn't been growing that well because there's so much other plants, and maybe they help can then bring this back to life. We also have the drip irrigation ready, which we will then place there once they are done with their job. Here you can see the slabs of vetiver. Initially I was a bit worried because they might trample and destroy it, but as the ground is pretty much dry, the risk of trampling is not so great, and it looks like it is working as intended. So it is now time to leave the job site, because this is now enough. So now we take them out and bring them to a different place. So the little bull is outside, but that's not a problem. He will join the herd in a second. This does not have to be perfect. Because now they believe the rest of the paddock is now open, but they will learn in a moment that they should go to the animal lane. Now it is time to get the kids who have been scattered around here.
Sacamos la vaca. ¡Ah! 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 No sale la vaca. Esos desgraciados. ¿Cómo han pasado?
Por ahí si nos lleva por aquí Juan.
Ya que nos sacamos la vaca, apriétale a ver si saliera, que no sale.
Aquí ya van a salir aquí. Uno se la probó.
Here we're making an additional very small swale. It is actually more like a trench. The idea is to fill it up with water so that it irrigates the parts below it, so that the Crotalaria huncea, the sun hemp, gets a little bit additional moisture as the summer progresses. Obviously this has to be on contour, so we took out the laser and we marked the line so that the trench is now also on contour, so that we can fill it evenly with water and it gets distributed the same way. We will see how good the implementation then will look like. So there ahead we have the Sudan grass and it looks all green, so this is working well. Also there has been no rain. And down there below the swale and the integrated pond, this is a mix of natural grasses that has been there and other plants, and the freshly seeded sun hemp, which is also coming up very nicely. The idea is to try this out now over the weekend for the part of the trench that is already dug, and then we have a better indication how this actually works, or where we need to reshape it a little bit, so that these guys can grow much better. Because down there, where there is more moisture, they are looking a little bit better than those in the drier parts. It is now a few hours later and I just came up here to check on this. So the water came all the way up to here and you can see it standing there. But then further towards the beginning of this trench you can then see that there is no water anymore. And the reason for that is, I went already there, the pump is no longer pumping water into it. It might well be because we pumped it dry. That may happen. So tomorrow, when this had time to replenish overnight, this should continue pumping. Of course the pump could also have a problem, but why would it be right now? Because it had been working all the time. But you never know, so I will leave this alone and we'll check on it tomorrow. But now that I'm here, I can show you the Sudan grass. So this is coming up very nicely. We have a green patch that is getting greener and greener by the day. And this has not received any more rain since the day it was planted. And we have not irrigated it either. So this is all by itself with the existing moisture. And I have a feeling that Sudan grass might be the grass to go for summer in our case. Looking good so far. And the sun hemp does not look the same way as abundant as the Sudan grass, but it is growing, and it just takes a little bit of time. But in order to make sure that it continues growing when the now existing summer drought continues, we have dug this trench to help it out here in this area. So that is basically buying insurance. I really do like this grass. Those are huge solar panels for photosynthesis. So now that these leaves are out and they are already quite big, the growth should continue at a higher rate. Because now, so I understand that, the plant is able to convert more CO2 from the air together with the sunlight and the moisture that is in the ground into more of its body, and therefore also store more carbon into the ground, because the roots and all that is made of carbon. So the bigger the leaves, the faster the growth. And here's another positive sign. So what you see here in between this very badly looking soil is Synodondactylon, Bermuda grass, and we can see it in all those places that now with the different type of management this is coming up. And over time, I have said that before, this might also be part of our summer pasture. It also does show up here in the tilt part where we have planted the sun hemp. And of course here it can grow a little bit faster because the soil is looser. This one here is a very nice example. So this is fresh, new, and it is already growing quite big. You can see if I zoom out how big it is in relationship to the surrounding area. You know the size of the stones by now, so this helps to understand the size of this plant. And we can see it is all over. So if I pan a little bit, you can see it in the other places right next to it. So there you can see a little bit more when I zoom more out. So this is all very, very positive. It is coming back to life. And as I have this opportunity, so this is the place where we tilt, and below you see the area where the pigs tilt for us, and the thing came back very, very interestingly, very, very good. And I now pan to the east across the fence. So this is also a neighbor who occasionally has some sheep running here, and besides that nothing happens. And this is how this looks like. And to make this comparison fair, so to the right, that neighbor, I just panned from there. Then we have our road that goes up to the Altiplano, and then to the left we have this area where we had our animals in for a few times, but no pigs so far. So it is behind in comparison to the other one where the pigs were, but it is in a little better shape than the part on the other side of the fence. So there is some connection between what the animals do and how this looks like. But this area definitely needs a lot more love, and it will receive that love over time, because we definitely will work with the pigs in there as well. After all, based on the location where we are, we kind of have an obligation to run Iberian pigs. That is what this area is famous for, and we should make a virtue out of that by having a lot of pigs and producing a lot of good ham from pigs that have been fattened on those acorns. And the more acorns we have, the more nutty the flavor of the ham is going to be. So these trees are a very valuable resource. This does not work without. And so I'm very happy that basically all our trees are making new leaves. And look at that. Our road is full of Bermuda grass. For some reason it always picks a spot where it's even harder to grow, because here we have vehicle traffic. But it picks those spots and wants to establish itself. This here used to be the worst paddock. The pigs have not been in here, just the cows, and bringing out straw and a little bit of seeding into straw, and that is what we have. And that is the one right next to it. We had pigs here and cows, and again pigs and cows, and this is how it is right now, after a little bit of grazing. The part here right in front of me used to be very poor, and it still is, but in all the lower lying spots, definitely the grasses have been able to establish themselves. And a manure pile like this one definitely helps also. It is right in the, and it's in the correct spot, so it's just perfect. And just because I am here, I can also show you this one here. This is what we call A5. So this will be due for grazing in a while. And I do hope that all this forage, all these plants, keep the soil a little bit cooler. This here is one of the 2 patches of vetiver where we want to take it out, because it requires irrigation. And we don't want to do that. We want to use the water that is in the ground. That calf there doesn't do any harm. He, I believe, or maybe it's she. Looks like a he. No, actually, let's see. This, well, it's hard to tell from the distance. Okay, but it doesn't matter. So this calf will not do a lot of damage here, and it's actually good that the vetiver gets also bitten off. It's a grass after all, so that is required. And we will split it into those little splits before planting, and so it doesn't really matter if there's a lot of leaf on top or not, because it will start again from the bottom, from the root. And here in this case, just to show you the detail, so there we have a vetiver plant, and the color is not green. That color is what it shows when it gets cold. So it made some leaves and then it got cold, probably overnight, and so it has this color. This is definitely a plant that wants to sit in full sunlight and at maybe 35 degrees centigrade, which we now have. So now it should be happy, except that it also needs water, and we better put this in a place where there is a swale, and here we don't have that. Originally we thought, just to mention that we are going to have pigs frequently there, and also have this pond which is behind that. So it's basically a big wallow, it's not a pond, always full of water. So the idea was that this down here can then also use that water, but as we are not doing that, we better take it out and use it elsewhere where that is not an issue. So here we have the new piggies, and as you might guess, they just came running because they assume that I am providing more food, which is not the case, because they have had it, and they get it here in those troughs. And have a look at how the area looks like. So they have pretty much changed it by eating and trampling everything that we had there. There are only a few plants left, and once they are done with that, they will then start uprooting, and we will add some straw to it to add more carbon to this, so that we don't have the pig smell of their poop. So those are happy little fellows. Next week the vet will come and give them a few vaccination shots, so that nothing bad will happen to these guys. And by the way, they are all male, so there's not a single female in here, but they have been castrated because that is what had happened before we got them. We wanted to do a different experiment, but we did not have the opportunity to get it started, so instead we got these, and those are 14, and we will feed them well and do a different experiment, which I will talk about in another video in the future. But it's going to be a very interesting experiment, and it will take us several years to complete. Quite interesting. So that was the reason why we don't have the swale, the trench filled up there, because that hose that is now vibrating was disconnected, and we have lost the water here, and therefore the pressure was not enough to lift it up all the way to where the trench is. Of course, this is very nice for the grasses here, and there's a lot of Bermuda grass in there, but it's not as we wanted this to be. Those guys here have taken advantage of that wallow, so that is good, but we actually need to provide them a little bit more. So we might want to use that sprinkler there, so that they can have a wallow in the center instead of a pond. They can make their own. So that's something that I will do tomorrow. I will turn this on, and then something will happen for them, because they cannot sweat, so they definitely need something to cool down. And if you don't provide it, but there is some water, then they will make their own swimming pool. And speaking about all this with water, so we have a plan over summer, hopefully it comes together, to construct a centralized animal waterer, so that we have something made of concrete that nobody can destroy, and all the hoses and the valves and all the other pieces are hidden from animal access, so that they definitely cannot get to it. And then it just means they have to go up there, and there will be no waterers out in the field. Makes management easier, and even for winter we can do something that we let the water circulate so it won't freeze.
That was it for today. Thank you for watching. Please come back in a few days.